joining us for another episode of the NIALPA podcast. We're so glad you're here. Each episode, we bring you voices from the field who are leading, innovating, and advocating for multilingual learners across our schools and systems. These short conversations are designed to highlight leaders in the field and give you a quick look at the powerful work happening across multilingual learner education. Today, I'm very excited to welcome David Rogers, who serves on the NIALPA Advisory Board. David, thank you so much for being here with me today.
It's my honor. Thank you, Jovi.
So to start us off, if you had a couple of minutes to just share why someone should join NIALPA, what would you say to
Oh,
them?
oh my goodness. Best professional organization in the world. Um, and I'm being very truthful on that. It took me a few years to come to understand what the power was in the National Association for English Language Program Administrators. And let me tell you, these are the folks who are in the trenches leading the way for multilingual learners, and they need lots of support, including each other, or I should say, beginning with each other. And that's how NOELPA is structured. So I see it as probably the most practical professional organization to be a part of. If you are working with multilingual learners and the resources, the expertise, the being privy to things that are happening in DC, which is changing daily. I just it's my first membership check each year. I'll just say that.
Awesome. So can you tell us just a little bit about your work, both within NIALPA and beyond, and how it connects to multilingual learner education?
Well, at 23 years of age, I became an educator and immediately was working with multilingual learners. Dual language education has been my passion since 1986. Was a founding member of Dual Language Education of New Mexico. That's where I was introduced to NIALPA through our annual La Cosecha conference. I retired a couple of years ago from the nonprofit Dual Language Education in New Mexico, and at that time, NIALPA had asked me if I would join as an advisory to their executive committee, in that they were getting more and more requests for assistance around dual language education mostly from their state education administrators, but also from LEA folks as well. And I said, sure. And it's been a pleasure. In addition to just thinking, highly of it as a professional membership organization and being a proud member. I also feel like they actually utilize my expertise and experience. Yeah, it's been a great relationship.
I started as a member of NIALPA when I was at the Iowa State Department of Education. And back in the day, NIALPA was really focused on state education agency members. And since they've grown and expanded, I feel like they're just really meeting the need in so many different ways, from adding the LEA perspective to also, like you said, really expanding beyond English learner programming and really having that focus on the broad dual language and bilingual education component as well. So it's been a lot of fun to see how NIALPA has grown and changed over the years. So, and it's exciting to see where they're heading.
Yeah, oh yeah. And even during these political times, just with unsureness of funding streams and where your technical assistance support's coming from, they're just proving that they are truly committed to one of another, as well as the students and the families that they serve.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit about, sort of tangentially your role as an advisory board member and sort of bringing that, dual language perspective. Can you tell just a little more about that? How does your perspective sort of contribute to the organization's work and sort of advance NIALPA's mission?
Well, of course, there's targeted assistance for our multilingual learners, of course, who all need to strengthen their English learning and their English development. But what I was so uh, motivated by is how many SEAs and LEA folks who have come to the realization they may have inherited their positions, for example, but as they have committed themselves to doing the very best for our multilingual learners, many have reached the conclusion that dual language education is the best program model to serve our multilingual learners, and of course, I believe that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just been wonderful detail in the requests from folks for different resources. I've been working with the lovers of dual language education since the late 80s, right?
Yeah.
these are folks, many of these folks have come to it just through a commitment in their jobs and
Hmm.
realizing the importance of that. So, one of the big things that we've done in the last 3 years is we've brought a leadership institute as a pre-conference institute offering to La Cosecha that Nailpa is leading. They are
Oh,
a true
nice.
co-partner in that. And it's wonderful because it's brought a number of these people sort of out from their offices and has put them placed them in front of other leaders to share their testimony and their stories and share their promising practice as well as their challenges, as that's the key for them, is they want more understanding and how to respond to the challenges that they're meeting each day. They want to make sure that they're continuously improving the implementation of their programs and the design of their programs.
Yeah, I think that's just really important because, to your point, with some of the, focus now on, English only, sometimes I think, the importance of research behind dual language education maybe is getting lost in some of like the current rhetoric. So maybe it's more important than ever that we keep that out in front of people so they do truly understand. The research is very clear on the benefit of having students be um, multilingual, multiliterate, multicultural, competent in multiple languages, multiple cultures. So I think we would be doing a huge disservice to let that get sort of to bury that lead in terms of where we're at right now with, focus on English development.
Correct. Correct. And these folks are truly the ones that are reminding their colleagues at the state
Mm-hmm.
level, especially, and at the district level, school district level, that yeah, you may not want you may see an opportunity to not do as much as we have in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah.
I'm here to remind you of the financial, the
Yeah.
academic,
Mm-hmm.
sociocultural benefits of these programs. So if we're to pull back on our support, we're gonna lose that which we've gained in our programming.
For sure, and that's I think what lots of folks are worried about is just losing some momentum around things that have been working just because of different priorities. So I think, like I said, now more than ever, it's really important that we're advocating in a way that folks understand the benefits and the power of dual language. So, from your perspective, what are some of the biggest needs in the field right now to support our multilingual learners, both dual language, EL expertise?
I think it's just connected to what you were just. I think it's just clarity, because there unfortunately are the voice of those who want to say that a monolingual approach, for example, an English monolingual approach to literacy development, for example, is huge and spreading across our country now without really thinking about the damage it's doing to our bilingual programs, or at least the unnecessary challenges it's producing. So I just think clarity, making sure you've got and I find myself laughing a little bit. It's like, make sure you have the facts, right? And right now we know what's happening, and in our social media and in our engagement with politicians, is it's really hard to separate what's the truth and what is sort of just being said for political gain.
Yeah.
So just making sure that we're being true to ourselves, doubling down, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
on engagement with communities and families, making sure that they have, as you say, the most appropriate and powerful research that's out there. And I don't mean just on one side either. I mean all of
Right.
it. We want all of it. I mentioned the English-centric monolingual approach to literacy. It's really being pushed now in our districts and our schools. There's nothing wrong with that. Foundational skills,
Yeah.
phonics is all really important,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to be there to remind them what else, especially
Yeah.
our multilingual learners need. Oracy, early comprehension, the love of reading, writing. I mean, I could go on
Mm-hmm.
and on and on. So let's make sure that we don't just get, try. I'm not calling people to argue more. I'm just saying make sure we're out there engaged in those conversations and reminding one another that the research says this, and that's not going away. The truth is the
Mm-hmm.
truth, and
Yeah.
let's make sure we respond to it in the decisions that we're making for our kids.
Yeah, and I think about too just how important local contexts are. I think it's always important to get the national perspective and the research and educate people on what the data says about the benefits of different program types, right? Or
Mhm.
conversely, the negative impacts of certain program types. But
Right.
how much does the local context matter? Like, how much do you believe that, districts using their own data to show their own communities, their own school boards, matters? And do districts have that data to be able to make those cases? I'm just curious about your perspective around that.
Well, I think the ideal is needs to be our own data. And I know here in New Mexico, where have lived for 36 years, how long has it been? Um, that is, most of the time our politicians are suspect to anything that's based on data that's collected outside of the state. So we're committed. Now we're also one of the poorest states here. So doing our own research is a little bit more of a struggle than in a state like Texas or California around bilingual education, but we have to continually commit to that. I will say at the same time, I know of some incredible leaders at the LEA level here in New Mexico, specifically, that do have data. There is data available. It's often, what is that saying? We're data rich and understanding poor or something like that.
Yeah.
There is data that we collect. I know as a former school principal, there was gobs and gobs and gobs of things that I
Mm-hmm.
had to be sending through the system up to Santa Fe. How much of that we got back in a usable form, disaggregated and analyzed in a way that would help us make decisions at the school, that was always really disappointing, So there is data out there, and yes, absolutely. The more you can pull from what's happening with the students you're serving as far as data and just a disaggregation that actually leads to an analysis that provides useful information. I'm all for that. And I really, Joby, I want to appreciate you too. Sometimes we find things that we don't necessarily like because it doesn't fit our politics, maybe. But you
Yeah.
know what? That information is just as important. And I know we don't have
Mm-hmm.
all the time in the world, but it's not just multilingual learners, but it's also
Yeah.
special needs kids,
Yeah.
and then just kids that come from marginalized communities. There's so
Mm-hmm.
much there that we still don't understand.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that, again, just really having the information we need to be able to support what we're doing. And so often I feel like a lot of times we're doing a lot of different things, but I feel like we're almost spraying and praying and hoping something works because we're not data driven, especially at the local level
I
sometimes.
agree.
And we just, to your point, it's not because we don't want to, but we maybe don't have the infrastructure for the research. Maybe we don't have the support for the analysis. So I do think a lot of times our educators and our school leaders and district leaders are doing the best they can in the absence of a lot of really strong data.
To this point, I'll say NELPA is part of some
Yeah.
decisions being made with dual language education in New Mexico. There's another researcher convocation coming up this year at this year's Cosecha, and we're really pushing our researchers to fill in the gaps because we find that most of our research folks want to research in the way that they like and in with the things that are most interest to them. But we're working collaboratively now to kind of to encourage our researcher community to kind of get to those pieces, some of the pieces that are missing.
So, how does NIOPA, you just mentioned kind of how they're helping to address the need around that data piece, but how else does NIOPA help support educators and leaders across different contexts, whether they're implementing, a bilingual model or if they are having to implement an English learner development model? How do you see NIOPA
Well,
helping support across various contexts?
I think in two ways. One, making sure that they're listening well, and also making sure that the resources that people are in need of are getting to them. And so that's managed mostly by our committees. We have an advocacy committee, we have a professional learning committee, we have a member committee, a dual language committee now has recently been formed. So constantly just having that two-way conversation and making sure we're putting resources out in front. Um, you know, just getting information today on the changing landscape, political landscape, right, is just really important. And so in many of our meetings, we have guests from the LL Roundtable or
Mm-hmm.
JNCL or
Yeah.
even the last member of OELA, Beatrice Sehak, will
Yeah.
join us in an official capacity. So it's also just making sure people are getting the facts and getting it in a timely way.
Yeah.
Those are the two main ways that I see NALPA serving folks right now, and they're trying to expand that with creating their own webinars not on advocacy. We call it championing for our multilingual learners, and in a number of different other areas too. I come in from the dual language side, so that's where I see a lot of resources that are going out. But I know we do focus just on that targeted English language learner support as well, which of course is so important to the success of our multilingual learners. This new strategic plan will be out soon. I was
Uh-huh.
just mentioning one of the reasons
Yeah.
why I was delayed in getting here today was because we were in committee working on it again. So that will be out soon, and nilpa.org is where folks can find that.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see the new strategic plan as well. That's really exciting to see the direction that NIALPA is taking and the types of supports that they're going to continue to provide. So, when you think about um, leaving our listeners and viewers with one piece of advice, what would that be?
Oh, wow. So I will assume that we're talking about educators
Yeah.
here. And this has held true in the 30 some odd years of my career is take time to spend time with students, especially if you're an educational leader position, formerly a classroom teacher, usually. Just take time to be in our classrooms and just observe. And sometimes with no other purpose except just to take in what's happening in the moment. I think I think that provides, I shouldn't say I think, for me that continuously provides great hope. Even when you see battles happening over what's the right way to uh, serve our communities from the politicians who have never been in the classroom, but
Mm-hmm.
it also keeps you up to date on where where the best teaching is happening and how it's happening and what it's focused on. I mean, really, and that's my main piece of advice. Just take time. I'm going to give principals out there one big piece of information.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you all have great secretaries too, but at least once a week, I would tell Mary Ida, rest her soul, I would say, Mary Ida, please start the day for me. And she would do the announcements in the morning. And I would just sneak in the back door and go to classes. And I spend an hour, at least in two different classes, half hour in each class, once a week, just to keep my finger on the pulse. And I think people need to come up with that kind of plan for themselves that are in education, those leaders. Just stay in touch. Because if not, you're just constantly being distracted by maybe well-intentioned folks or well-intentioned mandates, but we've got to keep this real. So make sure you
Mm-hmm.
keep keep engaged and just make sure you spend time in our classrooms.
I think that's really good advice. And I like to talk about ensuring that you have enough window into where the magic happens, which is teachers and students in the presence of content, right? And if you don't have your finger on that pulse, it's really hard to provide instructional leadership and make the right decisions for your teams and your educators and families. So thank you so much for being here today,
Absolutely.
for sharing your insights, and then also just thank you so much for your contributions to NIALPA and the broader field of multilingual learner education over the years that you've been working so tirelessly on behalf of this population.
Yep. And I just hope people will sign up tomorrow for to be a member of
Yeah,
NALPA.
that's right. I want to say thank you to our NIALPA podcast listeners. Remind you, stay connected with NIALPA. If you're not already a member, hop on and join and continue learning alongside this incredible community. So until next time, thanks to everyone for the work you do every day to support our multilingual learners and families.